A funeral is supposed to be sacred, a place where families gather to mourn, where communities come together to honor the dead, where grief finds solace in shared memories and prayer. But on June 17, 2022, in the Rosewood neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois, a sanctuary became a slaughterhouse. A moment of peace became a scene of unimaginable terror. 14 people were shot. 3 died at the scene. And one family's tragedy became a double nightmare they're still trying to understand. To understand what happened at the funeral, we must first understand who was being mourned. Her name was Destiny Marie Washington, 23 years old, mother of 2, daughter, sister, friend. My baby was special. Destiny had a light about her. She could walk into a room and everybody would smile. She was studying to be a nurse. She wanted to help people. That's just who she was. Destiny Marie Washington was born and raised in the Rosewood neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. A tight-knit community where generations of families have lived side by side. Where everyone knows everyone. On June 3, 2022, 2 weeks before the funeral, Destiny was driving home from her night shift at the hospital where she worked as a nursing assistant. At 11:47 p.m., at the intersection of 79th and Stony Island Avenue, Destiny's car was struck by a drunk driver running a red light. She died at the scene. She was 23 years old. The police came to my door at 2 in the morning. I knew. Soon as I saw them standing there, I knew. You never think it's gonna be your child. Never. The drunk driver survived with minor injuries. He had 3 prior DUI convictions. He was released on bond 2 days later. This detail would prove significant. Destiny's funeral was scheduled for Friday, June 17, at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church. The church where she was baptized as a child. Where she sang in the choir. Where her family had worshipped for 3 generations. I knew Destiny since she was a baby. Baptized her myself. She was one of our brightest lights. We expected a large turnout for her homegoing service. The community loved her. More than 300 people were expected to attend. Family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, fellow nursing students. People whose lives Destiny had touched in her short time on earth. Among those preparing to say goodbye was Destiny's older brother, Isaiah Washington, 28 years old. Iraq War veteran. Protective older brother who felt he'd failed to keep his sister safe. Isaiah Washington. This is the name you need to remember. Because Isaiah's grief, his anger, and his past would become entangled in the nightmare to come. Destiny was my baby sister. I served 2 tours in Iraq. Survived IEDs, firefights, all that. Came home thinking the danger was over. Then some drunk driver takes my sister. She survived 23 years in Chicago just to get killed by some fool with a 5th DUI. Where's the justice in that? Friday, June 17, 2022. The day dawned clear and warm. A beautiful summer morning. The kind of day that feels wrong for a funeral. By 10 a.m., mourners began arriving at Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church. Security footage shows families arriving in waves. Elderly church members. Young people. Children in their Sunday best. The church was packed. Standing room only. People lined up along the walls. We had to open the overflow room with live video feed. I'd never seen the church that full. At 10:47 a.m., the Washington family arrived. Carmen Washington, the mother, supported by relatives. Destiny's 2 young children, ages 4 and 6, confused about why mommy was sleeping in a box. Isaiah Washington arrived separately at 10:52 a.m. Security footage shows him pausing at the church entrance, taking a deep breath, squaring his shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. We reviewed all the security footage later. Isaiah Washington entered that church at 10:52 a.m. He was calm, composed. He greeted people, hugged family members. Nothing seemed unusual. The service began at 11 a.m. Traditional Baptist homegoing service. The choir sang, "His Eye is on the Sparrow." Reverend Thompson delivered the eulogy. I spoke about Destiny's life, her dreams, her dedication to helping others. I could see the pain in that church, but also the love. People were crying, but they were also celebrating her life. At 11:34 a.m., as the reverend was speaking, something unusual appeared on the security footage. A man attempted to enter the church, dressed inappropriately in street clothes. Appearing agitated, church ushers stopped him at the door. According to witnesses, he became argumentative, insisted he had a right to be there. The commotion caught the attention of several mourners near the back. This dude comes up late, service already started. He's wearing jeans and a hoodie to a funeral. I ask him politely to wait in the vestibule, we'll get him seated during a break. He gets aggressive, starts raising his voice. The man at the door was identified as Dwayne Mitchell, 26 years old. And critically, he was the younger brother of the drunk driver who killed Destiny Washington. Dwayne Mitchell had no business being at that funeral. His brother had just killed this girl 2 weeks earlier. The case was still pending. For him to show up there, it was provocative at best, malicious at worst. But what happened next would turn confusion into catastrophe. Because sitting near the back of the church, close enough to hear the commotion, was Isaiah Washington. At 11:36 a.m., Isaiah Washington stood up. Security footage shows him walking toward the back of the church with purpose, his military training evident in his stride. I heard someone making noise at the back, disturbing my sister's funeral. Then I heard someone say, "That's the brother. The drunk driver's brother. At my sister's funeral." I saw red. Witnesses say Isaiah confronted Dwayne Mitchell in the vestibule. Words were exchanged. The argument escalated quickly. I could hear them arguing. Isaiah was asking him what he was doing there. Dwayne said something about paying respects. Isaiah said he had no right. It got heated fast. People were trying to calm them down. At 11:38 a.m., the argument became physical. Pushing, shoving. Church ushers and family members rushed to separate them. The reverend paused the service. I heard the commotion. I asked everyone to remain calm, to remember where we were, why we were there. I thought we had it under control. Dwayne Mitchell was escorted out of the church by ushers. Security footage shows him leaving through the main entrance at 11:41 a.m. He appeared angry but compliant. Isaiah Washington was calmed by family members and returned to his seat. The service resumed. For a moment, it seemed the disruption was over. But Dwayne Mitchell did not leave the area. He walked to his car, parked half a block away. And what he did next would turn a sacred space into a war zone. At 12:15 p.m., the funeral service concluded. The congregation began filing out for the burial procession to the cemetery. 300 people emerging from the church into the June sunshine. Security cameras captured families gathering on the steps, taking photos, hugging, making plans to caravan to the cemetery. Children running between adults. Old friends reconnecting. Normal funeral behavior. Isaiah Washington exited the church at 12:18 p.m. with his mother and other family members. They were heading toward the family limousine when everything changed. A dark blue sedan, later identified as Dwayne Mitchell's vehicle, approached the church at high speed. We heard the engine first. Someone was driving way too fast down a residential street. Then we heard the first shots. At 12:19 p.m., Dwayne Mitchell opened fire from his moving vehicle. He was armed with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and an AR-15 style rifle. Mitchell fired approximately 47 rounds in less than 30 seconds. He was aiming into a crowd of mourners. Families, children, elderly people. He emptied 2 magazines. 14 people were struck by gunfire. The victims ranged in age from 8 years old to 72. 3 died at the scene. 11 were transported to area hospitals in critical condition. Among the dead, Reverend James Thompson, 67, who had been greeting mourners at the church entrance. Patricia Sanders, 58, grandmother of 4, struck while shielding her grandson. And Marcus Jenkins, 35, the church usher who had turned Dwayne away earlier. Among the wounded, Carmen Washington, Destiny's mother, shot twice in the abdomen. A 6-year-old child, Destiny's daughter, grazed by a bullet meant for someone else. 8 others with injuries ranging from critical to serious. Isaiah Washington was struck once in the shoulder. But witnesses say his military training kicked in immediately. Soon as the shooting started, everybody scattered. People running, screaming, diving for cover. But Isaiah moved toward the shooter. He was trying to protect people. I saw him push a woman with kids behind a car. That's when he got hit. Chicago police received the first 911 call at 12:19 p.m. Officers arrived on scene within 4 minutes. But by then, the shooter was gone. Mitchell fired his weapons, threw them in the car, and fled the scene. We found the vehicle abandoned 3 blocks away. Weapons still inside. He'd wiped them down but left fingerprints on the door handle. The scene outside Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church looked like a war zone. Shell casings littered the ground. Blood stained the church steps. Abandoned shoes. Dropped purses. A child's teddy bear. The debris of instant chaos. Breaking news out of Chicago's Rosewood neighborhood, where a mass shooting has occurred outside a church following a funeral service. The shooting made national headlines. Another mass shooting in America. Another community torn apart by gun violence. Another funeral that would now require 14 more funerals. At area hospitals, surgeons fought to save lives. Carmen Washington underwent emergency surgery. Her prognosis was uncertain. Isaiah Washington, despite his own injury, refused treatment until his mother was stable. I got shot trying to protect people. My mom got shot. At my sister's funeral. We came to bury destiny. Now we got 3 more people dead and my mom fighting for her life. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not like this. Within hours of the shooting, Chicago police launched a massive manhunt for Dwayne Mitchell. He was now wanted for 3 counts of first-degree murder and 11 counts of attempted murder. We knew who we were looking for immediately. Multiple witnesses identified him. His vehicle was registered to him. His weapons were in the car with his prints. He wasn't hiding his identity. This was personal for him. Police searched Mitchell's apartment in the Englewood neighborhood. What they found painted a picture of a man consumed by rage and planning violence. Mitchell's apartment contained notebooks filled with angry rants about Isaiah Washington. Social media research printed out. Maps of the church. Ammunition stockpiles. And a manifesto explaining his actions. They ruined my brother's life. They made him out to be a monster. He made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. But they wanted blood. They wanted revenge. So I gave them what they wanted. But Mitchell's logic was twisted. His brother had killed Destiny Washington while driving drunk, his 5th DUI offense. Yet Mitchell blamed the Washington family for his brother's legal troubles. Investigators discovered Mitchell had been monitoring the Washington family's social media accounts for weeks. He knew about the funeral. He knew the location and time. The late arrival at the church was not impulsive, it was calculated provocation. For 36 hours, Dwayne Mitchell evaded capture. Police tracked his movements through security cameras and cell phone pings. He was moving through Chicago's South Side, sleeping in abandoned buildings, stealing food from convenience stores. Chicago PD deployed over 100 officers. FBI joined the manhunt. The city was on edge. Schools locked down. Churches canceled services. A community held its breath. On June 19th, at 3:27 a.m., police received a tip that Mitchell was hiding in an abandoned warehouse in the Garfield Park neighborhood. We assembled a tactical team. SWAT negotiators. We surrounded the building. We tried to establish communication. Mitchell wouldn't respond. At 4:15 a.m., SWAT teams entered the warehouse. They found Dwayne Mitchell in a corner office on the 2nd floor. He was armed with a handgun he'd stolen from a pawn shop. What happened next lasted only seconds but would be analyzed for months. According to police reports, Mitchell raised his weapon. Officers fired. Dwayne Mitchell died at the scene. The shooting was ruled justified. Mitchell pointed his weapon at officers. They responded with appropriate force. Body camera footage supported the officer's account. The suspect in Friday's mass shooting outside a Chicago church has been killed in a police shooting. Dwayne Mitchell, 26, was shot by officers after allegedly pointing a weapon. Mitchell's death brought no comfort to the victims' families. There would be no trial. No answers. No opportunity to ask why. Just more death. More funerals. More grief. I wanted him to face justice. I wanted him to explain himself, to answer for what he did. But he took that away too. He took everything and gave us nothing back. In the weeks following the shooting, the Rosewood community buried 3 more of its members. Reverend Thompson, Patricia Sanders, Marcus Jenkins. Each funeral was heavily secured by police. Each service filled with grief compounded by trauma. Carmen Washington survived her injuries but would require months of physical therapy. She had gone to bury her daughter and nearly died herself. The psychological wounds ran deeper than the physical ones. I can't go to church anymore. I can't be around crowds. I hear a car backfire and I hit the ground. I was supposed to bury my daughter in peace. Instead, I watched people die on church steps. I watched my son get shot protecting strangers. I don't understand how this is my life now. Isaiah Washington underwent surgery to repair nerve damage in his shoulder. His military career was over, but the physical injury paled compared to the survivor's guilt. I served 2 tours in Iraq. I've seen combat. I've lost brothers in war. But nothing prepared me for watching civilians get gunned down at my sister's funeral. I keep thinking about what I could have done different. If I hadn't confronted Mitchell in the church, would he have left? Did I provoke this? Isaiah and many survivors are experiencing severe PTSD. What makes this case particularly traumatic is the layering of grief. They were already grieving destiny when they experienced a mass shooting. Then they had to grieve the new victims while still processing their original loss. The Rosewood community struggled to heal. Mental health services were overwhelmed. Churches increased security, which many felt defeated the purpose of sanctuary. Fear replaced faith in many hearts. Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church closed for 3 months. Bullet holes were repaired. Blood stains removed. A memorial wall was installed honoring the dead. But when the church reopened, attendance was half what it had been. Many members, including the Washington family, never returned. Legal proceedings brought little clarity. The civil lawsuits against Dwayne Mitchell's estate went nowhere. He had no assets. The drunk driver, Mitchell's brother, eventually pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter and received an 8-year sentence. The Washington family sued the drunk driver, the bar that overserved him, and even the church for inadequate security. But you can't sue a dead mass shooter. And proving the church should have anticipated this? Nearly impossible. The case reignited debates about gun violence, mental health, and security in sacred spaces. But like so many mass shootings before it, the national attention faded within weeks. For the survivors and victims' families, there was no fading. Only the daily work of survival. Of waking up and choosing to keep going. I come here every week. Talk to my baby. Tell her what's happening. I tell her about her kids growing up. I tell her we're trying to be okay. But honestly, I don't know if we'll ever be okay again. Isaiah Washington left Chicago 6 months after the shooting. He moved to a small town in Wisconsin, seeking peace he couldn't find in the city. People ask me all the time, was it gang-related? Was it terrorism? Like they need a box to put it in. Truth is, it was one angry man with access to guns who decided a funeral was an appropriate place for revenge. That's it. That's the whole story. One man's anger destroyed dozens of lives. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there were over 600 mass shootings in the United States in 2022. The funeral shooting was one incident among hundreds. But for those who were there, it was the defining moment that split their lives into before and after. On June 17, 2023, 1 year after the shooting, the Rosewood community held a memorial vigil. Hundreds attended, survivors, families, neighbors, strangers who felt the impact. But notably absent were Carmen and Isaiah Washington. They had suffered too much in Rosewood. The memories were too heavy. The place too haunted. People want closure. They want the story to have an ending. But there is no ending. We're still living it. Every day. My mom can't hear fireworks without panicking. I can't sit with my back to a door. We're still searching for answers that don't exist. The question that haunts everyone involved: could this have been prevented? Should security have been tighter? Should police have been notified when Mitchell showed up? Should Isaiah have stayed seated? Hindsight is 2020. Yes, maybe things could have been done differently. But you can't secure every funeral against someone determined to commit mass murder. This is the America we live in, where even sacred spaces aren't safe from gun violence. Reverend James Thompson, Patricia Sanders, Marcus Jenkins. They went to mourn a young woman's death. They never went home. Their families still search for meaning in senseless violence. Destiny Marie Washington's grave is no longer alone in its section of the cemetery. 3 more graves from that terrible day rest nearby. A young woman's funeral became 4 funerals. One tragedy multiplied into dozens. Isaiah and Carmen Washington remain close, bound by shared trauma. They video call daily, visit monthly, attend therapy together. They are survivors in every sense of the word. If I could say anything to people watching this, it's that gun violence doesn't just kill the people who get shot. It kills entire communities. It kills safety. It kills faith. We went to celebrate my daughter's life, and we left with more death. That changes you in ways you can't describe. I served my country, fought for freedom, came home thinking I'd left the war behind. But the war is here. It's in our streets, our schools, our churches. And until we decide enough is enough, this will keep happening. More funerals, more shootings, more families destroyed. Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church continues to serve the Rosewood community, though it's changed forever. Armed security guards, metal detectors, security cameras. The sanctuary has become a fortress. A plaque outside the church reads, "In memory of those lost June 17, 2022. May we transform grief into action, pain into purpose, and never forget that love is stronger than hate." But for the Washington family, still searching for answers, still healing from wounds both visible and invisible, those words feel hollow. Because some questions have no answers. Some wounds never fully heal. And some days, love doesn't feel strong enough to overcome the hate that destroyed their world. This has been a Dark Truth Files investigation. The Washington family continues their search for answers and healing. Dwayne Mitchell's motivations died with him. And the question remains, when will enough be enough?